Today is July 16th, 2012. I want to welcome you to another edition of Joe's Politics 101. You know, the verdict on the Zimmerman trial is somewhat really aggravating. I guess you could say it speaks volume about the American society and how it's beginning to, or let me say how certain people in our society are trying to reverse the progress that we've made over the 300 years that this has been a nation, an independent country. You know, I was thinking about all of the things that happened with that shooting, the actions of the police department, Sanford Police Department. Listening to the defense attorneys, which, you know, I don't have any malice in them doing their job. That's what defense attorneys do. They try to get the guilty off, and in some cases it works, and in some cases it don't. The majority of them will make some kind of plea deal with the prosecution or with the state attorney or the district attorney's office and accept some minimum time or some probation or something of that nature. But it's the aftermath that this guy O'Mara and West, you know, it's the things that they said in the aftermath. You know, it's like, from my point of view and my perspective and observation of listening to them and watching their body language, is as if, you know, Trayvon Martin meant nothing. He wasn't human. You know, it's a hurting feeling. And I have 4 grandboys. Well, actually I have 6. And it's really concerning, you know. All of them are nice-sized children. I have one grandson that's 6'5". I have one that's 6'1", 15 years old. I have one that's 5'11", 16 years old, and a 7-year-old who's about 4'5". And it concerns me. It really concerns me that we can't comfortably allow them to walk to the store without being concerned that somebody's going to accost them. It's a sad feeling. It also runs me back to when I was growing up, when an Afro-American man, boy, or adult was constantly in danger from white society. You know, it brought back an experience that I had around 1959, well, 1960, in Texas. And I tell this story, and I don't often tell it, but I'm going to tell it today. I had left my home in Hobbs, New Mexico, and took my friends that had come and spent some summertime at my home with me It was my first time ever being able to drive my car, somewhere by myself and come back. I made the trip, and on the way back, I got stopped by 2 county deputies outside of Brownsville, Texas. They stopped me. They did the boy thing with me. And there was I believe it was some type of refinery plant. Looked like it was maybe 5 miles or 6 miles across the field there. Well, they commenced to asking me about a burglary over there. I didn't know how to get to the plant. I had never been to the plant. Well, as I'm standing there and the guy asked me about if I burglarized some, I think it was drink machines or something like that, and I was trying to give him an answer, he hauled off and slapped the hell out of me. I was, back then, a 16-year-old male, could get a driver's license, or I had a driver's license. So they kept questioning me about it, hitting on me. So finally I said, either I'm going to die here, or I'm going to have to admit to something that I didn't do. Well, I went ahead and admitted to it rather than, continue to be beat on out in the middle of nowhere in the dark by 2 white men. So they loaded me in their police unit, and they brought me back to the town of Brownsville, to the police department. Then they began to question me about where the money was, and I had I think it was like $30 or $40 on me back then. Gas was cheap, money went pretty good ways. And I kept trying to explain to them, I ain't burglarized anything, and they started beating on my ass again. This time I wouldn't admit to doing anything, So they kept me there. My parents didn't know where I was. They didn't know, if anything had happened to me or anything. I stayed in that jail for 2 days. Then they decided, well, we're going to take you to get a lie detector test. It wasn't polygraph back then. It was lie detector. So they loaded me up, and they took me to Midland, Texas, where they did this lie detector test on me, and apparently I passed it. They loaded me in their car, and they brought me to Hobbs, New Mexico, to the police department, dropped me off in front of the police department, and took off. I often think about that. This was the state of Texas in the 1950s or early 60s. Well, 60. They could have just, beat me to death, shot me, and left me laying there. Nobody would have ever known what happened. Nobody would have ever cared what happened. Just another black person dead somewhere at the hands of a white person. Or they could have shot me and said they did it, and nothing would have happened. It seems like we're trying to get back to that. I keep listening to the rhetoric from they call it the right wing, but I keep listening to the rhetoric about, you know, Trayvon Martin deserved it. He shouldn't have been doing this. You know, there's always been a fear of black men for some reason by white males in this country, and some white females, you know. It's unwarranted. It's really an unwarranted thing. You know, living in one of those states where we have this stand your ground law makes you nervous. Everybody's wanting to pack a gun, carry weapons. You know, you speak to a person, they look at you like you're some strange person in your own country. They stare at you. You know, you just feel in some cases, in this area where I live at, and just have to be honest about it, there's racist individuals, there's institutional racism, there's covert racism, and if you get caught in the wrong place, there's overt racism. You know, I'm not a person who play the race issue. I don't play with white people about race. I don't play with anyone really about race. You know? And most of the young black Afro-American children believe that everything is so honky-dory, that they have so much equal rights because they can go to a store, or they can date a white girl, or they go to school with white kids, they grow up with white kids. You know, I worked around white people all my adult life. All my adult life. And I have yet, at my age, to have a positive experience in any relationship that I've ever had with any white man. You know, this hatred, this unwarranted hatred of Afro-Americans, this unwarranted fear, this unwarranted desire to do damage to the Afro-American male does not make sense in a country where freedom, liberty, and justice is supposed to be the norm. You know, this young man is dead. George Zimmerman is walking free. You know, I mean, he won the case. Being a former police officer, you know, all I can say is that, you know, this is one we lost. He got away with one. He lied, and he lied. The jury saw it his way, and that's fine. It doesn't matter. But George Zimmerman has to live with what he did. He knows exactly what he did. He knows exactly how everything happened. Trayvon Martin is not here to give his side of the story. So it's a one-sided deal. But what I will say is this. George Zimmerman has to live with that. He has to wake up every night in the cold sweat. He has to think about it every day, 24/7. He'll live with it. He will suffer with it. He will have to cope with it. And if he's strong enough to cope with it, then he'll survive. If he's not, God will take care of the rest of it. Thank you for viewing my video. God bless you. God bless America. Ciao.